Subcontractor jerks are not allowed to take breaks. We might cancel the contract. Taylor opened the break room door, and as soon as he saw our faces, he sighed and started yelling. Didn't you hear me? Get back to work now. Even though Taylor had occupied the break room just a few minutes ago, it was clear he wanted to take another break. All right, everyone, I know it's tough, but let's give it one more push. Director Brown encouraged everyone and immediately urged us to leave the break room. Despite working hard in the scorching heat with barely any breaks until now, they wouldn't even let us rest. I finally reached my breaking point. No, Director, there's no need to go back. I blocked Director Brown's hand as he tried to open the break room door. Hey, rookie, did you just say something? Taylor's face twisted as he leaned back in his chair. Taylor, did you just say you would cancel the contract? As Director Brown and my colleagues buzzed, I started speaking calmly. Tom, don't get too cocky. There are plenty of subcontracting companies out there. Taylor, displeased with my attitude, started walking slowly toward me. When he reached me, he clicked his tongue and opened the door. If you talk back again, you're all done. Now get out. Director Brown, sensing the tension, couldn't stand still. He looked down and tried to leave with me. Taylor, understood about the contract. Please inform the president that the $5 million deal is off. Looking Taylor straight in the eyes, I said this, causing Director Brown to turn pale. Tom, what's going on? Director Brown was flustered, unable to grasp the situation. But my decision was final. What did you just say, punk? Taylor grabbed my collar and looked ready to hit me, but I brushed his hand away. Everyone, today's work is over. I'll explain later, so please go home now. Hearing my words, the colleagues responded with a mix of confusion and cheers. Director Brown patted my shoulder and shook his head. Director Brown, please rest at home today. Trust me, it'll be fine. Director Brown looked into my eyes and nodded quietly, as if he had made up his mind. Everyone, we're done for today. Good job. What? Who gave you permission to stop working? Don't mess with me. Taylor, filled with rage, tried to go toward Director Brown, but I grabbed his arm and didn't let go. Hey, what are you doing? Let go of me. While Taylor and I were tussling, Director Brown and the colleagues left the break room and headed out of the site. Tom, you've got some nerve. Once everyone was out, I spoke calmly. Taylor, shall we continue this conversation at your company? I said this and began dialing a number. My name is Tom Smith. My family has been in the real estate business for generations, owning properties both domestically and internationally, including hotels and apartments. As soon as I started my career, I was put in charge of a real estate company overseas and became an executive. When I returned to America after many years, my family suggested I train to become the next president of our large real estate company, managed by my father. 6 months later, I came back to America after 10 years abroad. I immediately joined my father's company and, although I struggled with the different business practices compared to overseas, I learned the ropes with the help of the team. Then, finally, my father entrusted me with a significant project, the construction of a new facility. It was a large venue intended for various exhibitions and concerts. A completely new venture for our company, which mainly focused on hotels and apartments. My father wanted me to start from scratch, so I was responsible for everything, from architects to construction companies. Since I had little knowledge of American companies, I sought advice from knowledgeable members within the company. They mentioned a renowned construction company known for handling various large-scale facilities. After thoroughly researching the company, I found their track record impeccable, with numerous impressive projects. I held a meeting with the executives, and we unanimously decided to hire this construction company. Once negotiations began, due to the project's large budget and scope, we formed a project team to handle discussions. 6 months later, all the schedules were set, and construction was ready to begin. The project was progressing smoothly overall, but one thing bothered me. That is, the construction site supervisor from the company, Taylor. According to the team, Taylor displayed a strange attitude during briefings about the project's policies and procedures. He seemed uninterested, flipping through materials and yawning, appearing bored. Instead, his subordinates were taking notes on the documents, asking questions, and listening intently. It was hard to believe that a supervisor from such a reputable construction company would behave so lackadaisically. However, this construction project was the first of its kind for both me and the company, and I had a strong commitment to its success. If problems arose after construction started, the entire project could go down the drain. After much deliberation, I made a bold decision. I would infiltrate the subcontractor company and work there, observing the site firsthand. I explained my intention to the project team and entrusted future meetings to them. I immediately applied for a job at the subcontractor company listed in the construction company's documents, hiding my identity. With my various construction qualifications, I was immediately assigned to work as a temporary worker to subcontractor's site. I joined the subcontractor company as a rookie, and Director Brown was assigned to look after me. He was serious and quiet, but his genuine kindness showed through. Before heading to the site, he thoroughly taught me the construction schedule and rules. From what Director Brown told me, everything matched our requests, which was a relief. "There's just one thing I want you to be careful about, Tom," he said after finishing his explanations. "Yes, what is it?" I had a bad feeling. The site supervisor from the main contractor has a rather troublesome personality. I recalled the words from my team members. "I see. What kind of personality does he have?" Given the critical role of the site supervisor in construction, I asked cautiously. "You'll understand when you meet him anyway. For the sake of the company, let's handle this peacefully." Director Brown's words only heightened my anxiety. It seemed the site supervisor might be even more troublesome than I imagined. With these worries in mind, the first day on site finally arrived. When I arrived early at the construction site, a vast wasteland stretched out before me. Seeing this, I felt a surge of excitement about starting my first job in America. Lost in thought for a while, I was soon joined by Director Brown. We chatted in the break room until the rest of the team began to arrive one by one. As we engaged in small talk, the announcement for the start of work came quickly. "Director Brown, where is the site supervisor?" Today was the first day of work. There should be a morning briefing about the schedule and precautions before starting the tasks. My anxiety began to grow again. "Taylor isn't a morning person. Let's get started with the preparations." Director Brown explained briefly while looking through the documents, his expression unchanged. From this, I gathered that Taylor rarely showed up on time. Following Director Brown's instructions, we proceeded with the preparations. The morning briefing announcement came 30 minutes late. Just when I thought Taylor had arrived, it was actually one of his subordinates conducting the briefing. According to him, Taylor had an important matter at the office. Even if that were true, it's strange for the site supervisor to be absent on the crucial first day of work. Realizing there was no point in dwelling on it, I started working as instructed by Director Brown. Taylor finally showed up after noon. "Tom, Taylor has arrived. Let's go greet him." "Yes, understood." When I finally met Taylor, despite it being past noon, he looked noticeably sleepy and was leaning back in his chair. "Hey, Taylor, this is Tom, a new worker on the site." Taylor yawned as he glanced at my face. "I'm Tom Smith. Nice to meet you." Unable to tolerate Taylor's lazy attitude, I greeted him curtly. "Hey, rookie, you have quite an attitude. You don't even smile at the site supervisor." I smiled a little. "Did you hire a useless guy for a subcontractor? He's just like paycheck thieves." After saying this, Taylor lightly patted Director Brown on the shoulder and disappeared somewhere. Director Brown stared silently at a single point. "Does Taylor always act like that?" Director Brown sighed, gently patted my shoulder, and quietly returned to the workroom. On the first day, I was already troubled by Taylor's demeaning attitude toward subcontractors. Almost every day, Taylor would show up at the site just before noon. He spent most of his time in the office and rarely came to the site. When he did, he complained about how the other workers did their jobs and often made them redo their work from scratch. He also constantly complained to Director Brown and me. The others tried to keep things peaceful by apologizing and redoing the work as Taylor instructed. "Hey, rookie, if the client rejects this work, do you plan to disgrace me?" Saying this, Taylor kicked over what I had assembled, causing it to collapse. "Do it again." Without apologizing, I stared at Taylor. "Taylor, could you show me the correct way to do it?" I said, handing him the materials. "Are you talking back, Brown? Are you training the rookies properly?" Taylor shouted at Director Brown, who was standing a short distance away. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Director Brown quickly hurried over. "This amateur asked me to show him a demonstration. Can you believe that?" Director Brown's eyes widened as he repeatedly apologized. "I'm very sorry. It's my lack of guidance. I'm sorry." Taylor laughed as he roughly patted Director Brown on the back. "Right, we're contracting with a bottom-tier subcontractor that can't even train their workers, understand?" With that, Taylor walked back to the office. "Director Brown, I'm sorry. I'm just so frustrated." I was frustrated, knowing that Director Brown was unfairly caught in the crossfire. "I understand your frustration. You'll get used to it in time. It's going to be okay." Saying this, he continued working. No matter how much I stood up to Taylor, Director Brown never got angry with me. He always had kind words for the other members as well. Because of this, my disdain for Taylor, who looked down on Director Brown, grew each day. Then one day, the incident I had feared finally happened. After the morning briefing, I noticed something odd while inspecting the worksite. With Director Brown's permission, I checked the blueprints we were using and found that the work was being done according to the old plans. We had revised the budget to expand the site area, but the construction was proceeding with the original blueprints. I hurried back to the break room to question the project members. They told me that they had handed the updated blueprints and models directly to Taylor. I quickly realized it was likely a communication error on Taylor's part. I instructed the project members to call Taylor for confirmation. An hour after the issue was discovered, Taylor rushed to the site, even though it was earlier than his usual arrival time. "Hey, Brown, where are you?" Yelling as he entered the site, Taylor was approached by a running Director Brown. "Yes, is there a problem?" Director Brown nervously asked, and Taylor, holding the revised blueprints, shouted even louder. "Hey, you guys messed up the blueprints. Don't mess with me." Director Brown's eyes widened as he looked at the new blueprints, clearly different from what we had been working on. "But we were just following the blueprints you handed us." Even the usually calm Director Brown raised his voice against Taylor's unreasonable blame. Taylor's face turned red as he got even closer to Director Brown. "Are you talking back to me? It's your fault for not double-checking." Taylor continued to berate Director Brown until the end. Hearing the commotion, the other workers started gathering around. "Redo this by the day after tomorrow. If you can't, consider the contract at risk." Without giving Director Brown a chance to respond, Taylor got back in his car and left. Director Brown clenched his fists and gathered the workers to explain the situation. The workers, unaware that the mistake was Taylor's, sensed the tension in the air. Director Brown was just following the blueprints. He did nothing wrong. I shouted, unable to contain my frustration. Everyone turned to look at me. "Taylor brought the new blueprints today. Director Brown didn't know anything about it." The workers, familiar with Taylor's usual behavior, quickly understood. Director Brown showed a brief expression of relief before instructing everyone to redo the work. Determined not to fall behind schedule, Director Brown apologized to the workers and directed them to work from early morning until late at night. Seeing Director Brown and the workers working tirelessly only intensified my anger toward Taylor. Thanks to Director Brown's precise judgment and scheduling, we managed to meet the deadline Taylor had set. Fearing that the main contractor would discover his negligence, Taylor arrived at the site earlier than usual. We've redone everything according to the new blueprints, Director Brown said. Taylor, visibly relieved, began to make snide remarks again. If I hadn't noticed, it would have been a bigger issue. This is why incompetent subcontractor is such a problem. He said this, inspected the site briefly, and then went back to the office. With the original schedule already tight, everyone quickly resumed their work. However, with the record heat of the midsummer day, Director Brown decided it was too dangerous to continue working. He called for an early break to protect the workers' health, exhausted from several days of hard labor. Everyone welcomed the break and cooled off in the break room. Just then, the door creaked open, and Taylor walked in. Subcontractor jerks can't take breaks. We'll cancel the contract. Taylor opened the break room door and, upon seeing our faces, sighed and started yelling. Didn't you hear me? Get back to work now. It was obvious that Taylor intended to take another break despite having occupied the break room just a few minutes ago. All right, everyone, I know it's tough, but let's give it one more push. Director Brown encouraged everyone and immediately urged us to leave the break room. Despite working hard in the scorching heat with barely any breaks until now, he wouldn't even let us rest. I finally reached my breaking point. No, Director, there's no need to go back. I blocked Director Brown's hand as he tried to open the break room door. Hey, rookie, did you just say something? Taylor's face twisted as he leaned back in his chair. Taylor, did you just say you would cancel the contract? As Director Brown and my colleagues buzzed, I started speaking calmly. Tom, don't get too cocky. There are plenty of subcontractor companies out there. Displeased with my attitude, Taylor started walking slowly toward me. When he reached me, he clicked his tongue and opened the door. If you talk back again, you're all done. Now get out. Director Brown, sensing the tension, couldn't stand still. He looked down and tried to leave with me. Taylor, understood about the contract. Please inform the president that the $5 million deal is off. Looking Taylor straight in the eyes, I said this, causing Director Brown to turn pale. Tom, what's going on? Director Brown was flustered, unable to grasp the situation. But my decision was final. What did you just say, punk? Taylor grabbed my collar and looked ready to hit me, but I brushed his hand away. Everyone, today's work is over. I'll explain later, so please go home now. Hearing my words, the colleagues responded with a mix of confusion and cheers. Director Brown patted my shoulder and shook his head. Director Brown, please rest at home today. Trust me, it'll be fine. Director Brown looked into my eyes and nodded quietly, as if he had made up his mind. Everyone, we're done for today. Good job. What? Who gave you permission to stop working? Don't mess with me. Taylor, filled with rage, tried to go toward Director Brown, but I grabbed his arm and didn't let go. Hey, what are you doing? Let go of me. While Taylor and I were tussling, Director Brown and the colleagues left the break room and headed out of the site. Tom, you've got some nerve. Once everyone was out, I spoke calmly. Taylor, shall we continue this conversation at your company? I said this and began dialing a number. Hello, it's me. I'm bringing Taylor to the main contractor's office. Bring the team and meet us there. I instructed the project members to gather at the construction site. Then, I made another call to a different place. This is Tom. I'm coming over for an emergency meeting. Please gather the executives. Seeing me act so differently, Taylor's expression gradually darkened. So, who are you really? You'll understand everything when we get to your company. For now, please bring the blueprint documents from the office. Do you think you can order me around? You're mocking me too. Taylor, unable to grasp the situation, seemed a bit more flustered than usual despite his bravado. Well, I'll get them later, so just wait here. I said this, ensuring he wouldn't run away, and waited by the door for the team to arrive. After a while, the team arrived in their car. I asked them to take Taylor to the company while I headed to the office. As the team entered the break room, I heard Taylor's surprised voice echo outside. "What? Why are you here?" He probably never expected the employees of the real estate company we hired to show up. But his surprise was just beginning. Everything he had done would soon come back to him. I instructed the team and Taylor to go to the main contractor's office first. Then I gathered the necessary documents and my belongings from the office and followed them. When I arrived, the conference room was filled with the project team, the main contractor's executives, and Taylor. I forcefully opened the door and walked in. "Thank you for waiting. I appreciate everyone coming on such short notice." Taylor, who had just realized that I was the one who called this meeting, looked at me, his face turning pale. "Why?" Ignoring Taylor's mumbling, I began to explain the reason for the meeting. "I've called this meeting to discuss Taylor's conduct on the job." The executives, surprised by the unexpected meeting, began to buzz. When we initially hired Taylor for this construction project, his behavior during the meetings raised concerns among our staff. Taylor, clearly confused, stared at me as I explained the situation. I revealed that I was the one who commissioned the construction, had infiltrated the subcontractor company to observe the site supervisor, and described Taylor's behavior toward the subcontractors. Occasionally, Taylor let out groans of despair, but I continued to relay the facts. Upon infiltrating, I witnessed the site supervisor's unacceptable behavior toward the subcontractors, and we almost ended up with a construction that didn't meet our specifications. Taylor finally realized the mistake with the blueprints and seemed to understand the situation, holding his head in his hands. The executives asked for more details, so I recounted the entire series of events. I asked the subcontractor director to show me the blueprints. Realizing the mistake, I immediately informed the staff. With his mistake now publicly exposed, Taylor suddenly stood up and ran toward the executives. "No, it's not like that. I asked my subordinate to handle it. It's his fault." Even at this point, Taylor tried to shift the blame onto someone else. I reported to the executives about what happened on the first day. "Wasn't your subordinate scrambling because you instructed him to go at the last minute?" I pressed Taylor. "No, it's not like that. It's not true." Frustrated by Taylor's refusal to take responsibility, I requested his subordinate to be brought in. The tension was palpable as sweat beaded on Taylor's forehead. A few minutes later, the subordinate who had explained the process on the first day rushed into the meeting room. Recognizing me, his expression showed clear surprise. "I'm sorry to call you suddenly. I have a question about your work on the first day." At this, the subordinate's expression changed, and he looked nervously at Taylor. I quickly intervened. "We already know about Taylor's conduct. Please answer honestly." The subordinate's face darkened even more. "That day, were you rushing because Taylor asked you to go in his place?" The subordinate, head down, thought for a moment. I gently placed my hand on his shoulder, waiting for his response. Then, as if making up his mind, he nodded quietly. "How dare you lie?" Taylor started to say. I asked the subordinate another question. "Did Taylor inform you about the changes discussed in the meeting?" The subordinate looked at me with an expression that showed he didn't know. I never heard anything about changes from Taylor. It was now clear that the mistake was Taylor's. I thanked the subordinate and told him to return to work, then continued. "Taylor, there are many witnesses. Why don't you just admit your mistake?" Taylor, shoulders slumped, sank to his knees and, after a moment of contemplation, hung his head. "It was my mistake. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." He apologized in a voice so small it was almost unheard of. "Please, lift your head. You're apologizing to the wrong person." Then I addressed the executives with an important announcement. "Given the substantial financial stakes for our company, we cannot entrust this project to Taylor." Saying this, I pulled out several documents. These documents contain recordings of everything Taylor said while I was on site. Since the beginning, I had been secretly gathering evidence in case it became necessary to terminate the contract. To obtain the most compelling evidence, I had placed audio recorders in the office locker and kept one in my pocket at all times. Unless you replace the site supervisor, I will submit this evidence and cancel the $5 million contract. The executives took Taylor's repeated arrogant behavior and poor work ethics seriously and agreed to replace the site supervisor on the spot. Taylor, with no other options, had to accept the decision. As the meeting concluded, I stated one more condition before leaving the room. The next morning, I arrived at the site at my usual time. Director Brown, who had arrived earlier than usual, rushed to me, asking for an explanation of the previous day's events. Actually, I'm the one who commissioned this construction project. Director Brown's eyes widened in shock, his mouth agape. Why would someone like you be working for a subcontractor? Taylor had a poor reputation even before I joined the site, so I wanted to see it for myself. Hearing this, Director Brown looked even more surprised. Is that so? So you saw the poor state of the site? His expression clouded. No, actually, working alongside you all, I saw that everyone, starting with you, Director, worked diligently. Director Brown must have been worried that the contract might actually be terminated. The problem was with the site supervisor, but that was resolved yesterday, so you can relax. I told Director Brown to gather all the employees for the morning briefing. Following the announcement, Director Brown began assembling the employees as I requested. Around that time, a car pulled up, and a visibly worn-out Taylor stepped out. Thank you all for gathering. I am the one who commissioned this construction project. There were gasps of surprise from the employees as I revealed my identity. I then expressed my gratitude for their daily efforts and meticulous work. Yesterday, I met with the main contractor's executives, and due to Taylor's repeated poor conduct, a change in site supervisor was approved. The employees and Director Brown were even more astonished by this unexpected decision. As one of the conditions, I had asked for Taylor to apologize directly, which is why I had him come to the site. I asked Taylor to come and say a few words as he leaves this site today. As I said this, Taylor appeared before Director Brown and the employees, looking as if his soul had left him. He slumped down, muttering in a trembling voice, I deeply apologize for my arrogant behavior. No one was willing to accept his apology at this point. It was a fitting consequence. Still, I hope that his direct apology might bring some solace to Director Brown and the employees. That's enough, Taylor. The executives will handle the rest. Please return to the company. I said this briefly and left the rest to the executives, until a permanent replacement was found. I called upon Taylor's subordinate, who attended the initial meeting, to act as the interim site supervisor. I then went to the subcontractor company to explain the situation. Since we hadn't finalized the main contract, we concluded with a provisional agreement. After finishing the meeting at the subcontractor company, I returned to the site to report to Director Brown. When I arrived, it was lunchtime, so I had my first relaxed conversation with Director Brown. Thank you for helping us. Finally, I can see the employees' relieved faces. Then I asked a question that had been on my mind. Director Brown, why did you tolerate Taylor's behavior for so long? I found it strange that Taylor's behavior had been tolerated, even though it could have been dealt with by consulting the main contractor or someone else. Well, the truth is, we've had a long relationship with the main contractor, sharing both good and bad times, said Director Brown. He then explained the relationship with the main contractor. According to Director Brown, Taylor had only been the site supervisor for a year. Before that, they had worked with another site supervisor and had built a good relationship. When the subcontractor company was still small, the main contractor assigned them work, allowing them to grow and increase their staff. When the previous site supervisor retired, Taylor was appointed as his replacement. From the beginning, Taylor's work attitude was poor, a stark contrast to his predecessor. However, Director Brown kept quiet because Taylor was related to the president of the main contractor company, knowing that their company had survived thanks to the main contractor's support when they were small. Taylor used this leverage to silence Director Brown whenever there was an issue. "I see. It must have been tough for you, Director Brown." I could tell that Director Brown had been troubled by this situation. Despite the good relationship between the companies, I hoped things would improve moving forward. A few days later, the main contractor's executives came to me personally to apologize. They quickly decided on Taylor's punishment, the most severe being his dismissal from the company. Taylor's shallow thinking that he could do anything because he was related to the president did not hold up. The main contractor company quickly acknowledged their fault and worked hard to meet our requests. Consequently, we decided to continue the construction project with them. A well-regarded site supervisor from another construction site was appointed as Taylor's replacement. I immediately went to check on the construction site. Seeing the site, it was clear that the previously tense atmosphere had transformed into a vibrant and lively environment. Watching Director Brown and the new site supervisor discussing the blueprints gave me a sense of relief and confidence that things would go smoothly. I continued to visit the site occasionally, eagerly awaiting the project's completion while keeping an eye on the construction progress.